Madam Acting Mayor, if you could call the meeting to order. Great.
Okay, we'll do. So we'll call the meeting to order. I apologize for being a little bit late today. We had a very full agenda. So we're going to call the meeting to order, but could we take a quick recess to wait for the mayor?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'll begin with greetings. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's a regular council meeting. It was scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock. My deep apologies, our deep apologies. We had some work that we were doing in a prior meeting that we simply had to complete, and we were able to complete it, but not before making this meeting a little bit late. And I want to open this meeting actually with an explanation, a tribute, and a recognition. Tonight we're all wearing bow ties. You'll see staff are wearing bow ties. You'll see staff are proudly sporting a bow tie. We normally wouldn't be wearing bow ties. I don't normally do it, and I thank Councillor O'Neill for lending me one of his. We're doing that tonight because last week the city of Coquitlam suffered a tremendous and terrible and unexpected loss in the passing of Michael Dhaliwal from our planning department. Michael was a man of great promise, dignity, and one who all of us here will miss and mourn dearly. His tragic death has left a gaping hole in our city's family, and it is the reason many of us here this evening are wearing bow ties. Because Michael, with his contagious smile and his limitless enthusiasm, wore a bow tie each and every Monday to council meeting. Michael was the city's major project planner in our planning and development department, and he dedicated his efforts to many of the exciting things that you see growing and changing in our community. Michael joined the City of Coquitlam in December 2007 as a Planner 1, and true to his abilities, was quickly promoted to Planner 2. He was seen as a true leader in our organization and someone who was full of energy and promise. So much so that Michael was selected to participate and be mentored in the city's leadership development program, and shortly after was promoted to his most recent position of major project planner. During his 9 years with the city, Michael was a cheerful, respected, and important member of our working family. His contributions to the team and the public were far-reaching and impactful. He will be sincerely missed on both a personal and professional level. He will also be missed on a level of friendship because he was approachable, he was always there, he was always understanding, and he also impressed everybody with his enthusiasm, the boundless enthusiasm that would make him make the decision that a bow tie was appropriate every Monday, and that he would show up and do his very best, and it was very good. It was very, very good. The news of his sudden passing last Wednesday night, the news that reached us on Thursday morning, has deeply affected his family, his friends, and his colleagues, and is not something that we will recover from quickly. It's hard to express in words the energy and passion that Michael possessed for our city, his colleagues, and his friends. Hard to express in words when we see in our reports today and tonight Michael's name as a contributor to the report. It's hard to express in words when we almost expect him to take the microphone to introduce an item or to explain a staff report or to manage through a public hearing on items that are really important to the citizens of Coquitlam and that he was passionate about. Our thoughts are with Michael's family and friends during this difficult time as we all mourn his passing. And our thoughts are with him as even members of the development community are wearing bow ties tonight. In recognition of someone they worked with, someone they may have fought with, but someone who they respected and who today we all mourn. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item on this evening's agenda is a presentation. It pertains to the Lower Mainland Christmas Bureau. I'd like to invite Mr. Chris Bayliss to come forward, and he's here to speak on the impact of city support on the Vancouver Motorcycle Toy Run.
Good day, sir. Good to see you here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me tonight. I was wondering about the bow ties, and that's quite a powerful statement you made. It's kind of surprising. We've had a number of losses just this week in the motorcycle community, so I kind of feel it a little more than I should be, perhaps. So into some perhaps good news and light stuff. I came tonight strictly to thank the City and Council and your excellent staff and your RCMP for the hard working, making our toy run continue to be successful. It gets more challenging every year as the cities keep growing, the traffic demands keep increasing. Coquitlam's taking the lead with us with changing the start time, liaison with Port Moody, Burnaby, Vancouver to make sure it runs safely and respects public safety. On the planning behind the scenes side, exemplary work by your staff. I can't say that enough. They're always a pleasure to work with. On the positive side, for something really good, we helped 16 Christmas bureaus last year, which is 2 more than the year before. Ship anywhere from 50 to 80,000 toys to low-income families around the Lower Mainland, which by definition for us now is Squamish to Hope. A company in the Tri-Cities came to us a couple of years ago, and they said, we want to do a bike drive. They said, we understand you guys don't get a lot of bicycles. We said, we get about 50, around 12 Christmas bureaus, that's not many bicycles. Last year they did 500 bicycles. Or 2 years ago, I stand corrected. Last year we did 1,000 bicycles in 3 hours. And the project went national. It's a Tri-Cities based company. And and they've partnered across Canada with all the National Fire Chiefs Association, and we anticipate that will keep growing. That came from a meeting like, can we get a few bikes in a few kids' hands, and we did 1,000, so I'm fairly proud of that. The amount of support you put in through your city grant is significant. It helps underwrite almost all, if not all, of the cost of engineering and policing of Coquitlam. We also use that as leverage with the other 3 cities, to tell you the truth. We say, look at what Coquitlam does, look what Burnaby does, look what the other cities do. It comes in quite handy sometimes. And it takes a lot of vision to understand that those 2,000 motorcycles rolling through Coquitlam will bring in 2,000 or 3,000 toys, and in 1 hour we'll do all that, and it's significant, and it's one of the biggest in Canada, if not North America now. So that's my official stuff. Again, so I'll just finish up with thanking you again for what you're doing. Any questions?
Well, as someone who participates every year from the sidelines, I want to acknowledge and thank you for the work you do, and it is true with the loss of James Vaux a week ago and other members of our community on motorcycles. We might take the opportunity to remind motorists that motorcyclists and us cyclists are less visible sometimes. We perhaps have less maneuverability, although everyone thinks we have more. And to please keep your eyes out. As the weather gets better, the number of people on 2 wheels will increase, and we urge everyone to ride safely and to drive with both eyes on the road. And Councillor Towner, you have nothing to say. You don't have to.
I was going to go right into the practicalities of it. It's called a toy run. But I used to work for a nonprofit that we collected toys at Christmas time, and I know that preteens and teens are very challenging to raise gifts for at Christmas time, and I'm just wondering if it's a toy run, but do you also promote the acceptance of cash or gift cards or anything along those lines for those older kids?
That's an excellent question. Thank you, Councillor. We have been 2 messages forever. No more stuffed animals, which is, they're wonderful. They have comfort value, but we have anywhere from 12 to 20,000 per year, which is more than everybody needs. And we also promote consistently teens and preteens, and we are building success on that level. We had, it sounds crazy, we had 1,000 identified teen toys last year and 300 or 500 gift cards. It goes up every year. Having said, every Christmas bureau we support, every charity we work with has exact same challenges. Lots of toys for little children and very little for teens and preteens. So that's a good question. It's a message we're always working on.
I think people like to go and buy a toy. I mean, a gift card's kind of boring, but
it's a tactile thing. They show up when they'll have a large toy strapped on their motorcycle. Also, it's a very generous financial group. Some people will bring a toy and a cash donation, and it's important we stay on message. And it took us, when I started doing this a million years ago, apparently we would be half stuffed animals and half normal toys or other toys. Now we're down to about 5 or 10% stuffed animals at any given event. So it's working. But again, stay on message and work with our community partners. So thank you.
thank you very much.
I noticed I sometimes take pictures of it. No, really. And I notice year after year a couple of the riders that have the same stuffed animal strapped to their bike. And I asked one of them this year, and he says, "I give gift cards. The stuffed animals to make me feel better." So strap the animal to the back of the bike and give gift cards.
We don't judge who they put in the back of their bikes, but we do have a lot ongoing dialogue about that. Also, Mayor and Council, you do have council members that do ride the toy run. I've seen it in the past, and we'll figure out, as you'll point out, well, there's one of my councillors going by. They don't really say who they are. They just show up and ride as you show up and participate every year. So it truly is a family event. We get a large number of families that come out every year and watch it. We get families that come here and drop off toys at Coquitlam Centre. They come and drop off toys at the P&E. They drop toys off with our motorcycle participants. They drop off toys with our volunteers on the route. So it truly is about families and giving, and it's a simple message, and we'll just keep doing it as long as we can. And it's heading for almost 40 years old, and it's one of the biggest in North America. So again, thank you, and I think that's all I've got.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much for the work you do for a lot of happy Christmas mornings.
Thank you very much.
I want to acknowledge that Mayor Mike Clay from neighboring Port Moody quite often participates. It's on a scooter, I think. Okay. Mr. Clerk, save me.
It's part of the job description. Item 2 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, May 2nd. Staff recommendations that the minutes be approved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Towner. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is minutes of the City School Board Liaison Committee meeting of Wednesday, January 27th. Recommendation to receive.
That's moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Marsden. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 pertains to Universal Accessibility Advisory Committee work plan adoption. The minutes were previously received. However, what is coming forward is a recommendation that their 2016 work plan be approved by council.
Moved by Councillor Zarrillo, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? I've got nothing. I'm sorry, I had no speakers. Oh, I see Councillor Zarrillo now. Sorry. Councillor Zarrillo.
So I'm getting
My apologies for not noticing.
I'm getting a cue from the clerk that I need to revise. I thought it was already removed from here, but the work plan, do I need to make a motion for this, the clerk?
You did move the motion as revised, but perhaps if you could just articulate what as revised means.
Okay. So there was a request on the work plan from the Universal Accessibility Committee for us to include exploration of increasing mental health awareness on the work plan for this year. And although this mayor and council is deeply committed to this effort, at this point in time, they felt it was a large item to add for this year's work plan. So we've asked for that to be removed from the work plan, and that's the amendments to the 2006 work plan for this committee that we're voting on. Is that all right?
That is correct. So the part of the work plan says exploration of increasing mental health awareness will be removed in the final version that will direct the work of the committee throughout 2016.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
And that is the motion as amended? That is the motion as moved?
The motion as moved was as revised. I think that was originally meant to incorporate the changes that were added by the committee. If council would like to move that it be amended to make that change, that's also appropriate.
I'll just make certain that the seconder was comfortable with that amendment and understood that to be in place when he seconded it. Yep. So the motion on the floor is the amended version of the motion before you, deleting that one, that one row. Further discussion? Motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 pertains to the minutes of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee meeting of Thursday, March 10th. Recommendation that the minutes be received.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Towner. Councillor Marsden.
Oh, sorry, I think it's for the next one for the recommendation on the committee, so my apologies.
Okay, Councillor Zarrillo.
Just a question about page 3 of the minutes. There was, it says, the second paragraph, that there was discussion about the proposed inscriptions or the town center plaza. And there, I noted bullet 2, 3, 4. I'm just wondering if the discussion from the committee is going to be the inscriptions. They said that the settlers be substituted for homesteaders, and that the suggestion that the city's July 25th birthday date be included as inscription. So I'm just wondering which of these discussion points, if any, were going to be incorporated in the inscriptions on the stairs.
Mr. Alueva.
Thank you. Through the chair, well, I'm not going to be able to confirm the precise wording. We have actually met with the Coquitlam, and we have got full agreement on the final inscriptions, and we're quite happy, and they're quite happy. So I believe what was identified here has now been agreed to, but there was some minor adjustments with them to make sure that everything was signed off, and our staff is also quite happy with the wording. So, but it is reflective of the minutes. I would have to email you any minor adjustment beyond this, but following this, we did go back to the Coquitlam and made sure that they were okay with the inscriptions.
I think more what my question was there wasn't community input on these inscriptions, but it did come to this committee, and there was not recommendations, but there was discussion, and I'm just trying to understand which part of discussion at the committee level gets applied and which doesn't. So if their choices, like the settlers versus homesteaders, that was a committee discussion, but was it enacted is what I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to understand the process where a committee would make suggestions and they would be enacted without it coming through council, I guess.
I think our typical, through the chair, if I can, our typical approach is that were suggestions made by the committee in a case like this where we're dealing with the Coquitlam, and we also did have some of the wording vetted through council subsequently, we would make the best efforts to bring forward the wording through the process to the Coquitlam, and if acceptable to the Coquitlam, we would make that happen. If there's concerns by the Coquitlam, which I'm not aware of, we would try and balance that and bring forward the best resolution. In some cases, verbatim, we might not be able to achieve every word because the project is running relatively quickly and the wording is being sandblasted into the plaza as we speak. I can certainly bring back the specific wording that was finally adopted for council's information. Typically, we try to complete the wording as per the committee's suggestion. If the staff felt that the committee's suggestion, as reflected in the minutes, were not acceptable, it would have been identified at that time. But I think the suggestion was taken back, and my understanding is that we were able to finally get resolution with the Coquitlam based on the suggestions made by the committee. I can certainly bring back the details on the final wording for council.
And then just the bullet about the July 25th birthday included as an inscription. Do you know if that is happening or not happening?
Again, I'd have to get the final wording. I can get that to council by tonight or tomorrow morning.
So I guess through the chair, I guess my question is really around a committee suggestion that doesn't come through council. Is that a regular practice? I mean, this is quite a high-profile project, and I guess sorry, Mr. Alawave, I still didn't get an answer to the question, which is this the way the committee said they wanted A, B, and C? Do we just do A, B, and C without it coming back to council for approval? I don't know if I'm probably not explaining that properly, but.
I think you are. In most cases, if a committee, like a standing committee of council, is seeking adjustments in the wording, and the staff at that committee are saying, yes, that seems acceptable, that they don't see any technical reasons, we normally would do what the committee is asking us to do unless we find there's technical issues when we go back and try and deal with it So if we typically do not go back to the committee either verbally or through some form of other communication, it's typically because we've done what the committee's asked us to do. But there are some minor nuances and some minor adjustments that may happen. We sometimes can meet the full spirit of the suggestions by the committee, where maybe there's a slight verbatim that doesn't happen, and that depends on the subject matter that we're talking about. I know in this case we're talking about specific wording, that's engraved onto the concrete, when I spoke to our staff, they'd indicated that we'd taken these suggestions, we'd spoken to Coquitlam, and we'd had a full resolution based on the discussion at committee, but I'm not entirely sure that every single word discussed has been engraved as per the suggestions of the committee. And I wasn't there at the committee as well.
So I'm still not understanding if things can go straight from committee to action, but we'll leave that for now. The other thing I saw in the minutes was there was 2 recommendations, I believe, in the minutes that I was expecting to see pulled out or separated, and I don't think I saw.
They come next.
They're items 5.7 and 5.8 in the agenda.
Yeah, not the one about the USC work plan, the one about changing the name.
That's item 5.7. It will follow the receipt of the minutes. If you look at the agenda page.
Yeah, I thought I did see one recommendation, but I did not see all of the recommendations that were in the minutes. So there's a recommendation in the plan for the work plan, and there's a recommendation in the minutes for cultural review the terms of reference.
It's in the.
So, yeah, okay. So it was the terms of reference. Okay, yeah, okay. It was folded into the terms of reference. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Morrison.
Oh, no, that's for the next recommendation of shut off.
Don't keep adding yourself then. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. As chair of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, I was part of the discussion, listening intently to the really good recommendations that came from the committee members about the inscriptions. And I'm glad Councillor Zarrillo raised the issue because I wondered at the time how staff was going to be handling this because the inscriptions had already come to council and there had been feedback from council. My feedback had been some very technical editing things that I had sent an email to staff, and I can't remember what other people had said, but I know at the time in the committee meeting the staff absolutely took the suggestions as, oh, that's a great suggestion, you know, almost like slap in the head, we should have thought of that. But I wondered then what the process would be, and I think it would be at least a courtesy to council to have a formal reporting out, as in, by the way, the words we showed you, the committee came up with some better wording, and what do you think about that? But that might not be possible because of the timelines, and I think we're in a very tight timeline here. So at least a report saying we had to do this, these were great suggestions, doesn't change the intent or anything of what we presented to council earlier and you agreed to, but there's been refinement on suggestion of the committee. And the committee does not dictate these. The staff was the one that decided. They came up with the wording in the first place that, oh, these were great suggestions. We're going to incorporate these. But I think a better process, slightly better process would have been to report it back to council with this. An even better process, if the time had been allowed, would be to run it back, run the new wording before council again. But just to give us that final authority. Anyway, I was really impressed with the discussion that we had around this one. Thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers? The question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item of business arising out of that committee's meeting concerns its review of its terms of reference, including the name of the committee. And the recommendation from the committee is that council endorse changing the name of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee to the Culture Services Advisory Committee and approve the committee's terms of reference.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Towner. Councillor, it is this time. Okay. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I completely appreciate what the committee's recommending in terms of changing the name of it. I do note, however, that within the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department, if we look at item 8 on page 5, it refers to Ms. Bassey as the Cultural Services Manager, and I'm so wondering whether or not, for purposes of consistency, that the more appropriate name would be the Cultural Services Advisory Committee versus just the Culture Service. I'm wondering if there's staff any thought on that.
Mr. Alweva.
Okay, so if I can just read the resolution. So council endorsed changing the name from Arts Culture Advisory to Culture Services Advisory Committee. And sorry, Councillor Marsden, you're
Proposing it would be Cultural Services.
Yeah, I think it's to me that's consistent with the title of the manager. I'm okay with it. I think cultural. I think both are actually correct grammatically, but I'm quite happy with it. If that change is acceptable to council, I'm quite supportive of that.
All right, thanks.
Okay. We'll wait till it goes around the table and see how friendly it's going to be, and then we might entertain an amendment. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. I recall this discussion as well, and this one went on for a while. And there was even a discussion about whether it should be culture or cultural, and the discussion did center on culture, and so maybe we should be looking at changing the title of the cultural services manager rather than changing the title of, because it's, so it's settled on culture services because culture, we wanted to make sure that culture was the primary focus and not made into an adjective to just simply describe the services. So it sends a message in a way, and you know that I was an editor and a writer in my past career, and so and we are Parks, Rec and Culture. We're not Parks, Rec and Cultural Services, as Councillor Hodge just whispered to me. So culture was to just draw attention and make sure that that was the key word, and kept it as a noun and not as an adjective, which I thought made sense.
Thank you. Councillor Zarrillo.
Well, I'm a bit of a purist, so I'm a bit torn on this one. So I went to my dictionary yesterday because I thought, why is it that this one's bothering me so much? And I think it's because the arts are a non-intellectual expression of creativity, and culture is a knowledge-based, defined way to cage the arts. So I was a little bit concerned about this one because it's important how we use words, and I think that the arts are important in an unfettered kind of a way. And I'm looking at the definitions here, culture, and I know there was a bunch in the plan, but this is what I was looking at last night. The arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively are culture, so we have to put some labels on it. So I'm not sure that I'm not going to go with the recommendation, but I needed to get it out there that I think that if we lose the word arts, the arts or arts at this point in time, we're potentially doing a disservice not only to the open creativity of the arts, but also as I made a note in my paper, it's not intuitive for residents that might want to be part of this committee not to see the reference to the arts. So I would like to keep the arts. Like I said, I'm not sure that I'm not going to go with the recommendation, but I do think there's a distinct difference between arts, which is an open, creative, and culture, which is something that society defines, or someone says, you know, you're cultured because you have a knowledge of certain things. So I'm going to have a hard time letting this one go.
Okay. And in rebuttal, Councillor O'Neill.
Well, in elaboration, perhaps, the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plan, the draft of which was supported by Council several weeks ago and is now before the public for feedback. I think I've got that right. I did talk about wanting to integrate everything under the umbrella of culture. And as Councillor Zarrillo pointed out, there were many definitions of culture provided for in that report. All throughout, it was salted and peppered with definitions of culture, all of which, none of which precluded arts, none of which precluded heritage as well. So the thought was, and I agreed with it, that under the term culture, you can include, and you do include arts, and you do include heritage, and you do include to some extent the multicultural component we have, although we have another committee specifically for multicultural. There can be multicultural aspects of the work of this committee as well. So I was very happy with the one word culture to encompass and embrace all of these different aspects of our rich culture, including arts and including heritage. that one word to simplify it and make it go forward. Thank you.
I'm leaning toward the adjective, but I'm not even going to talk about it because we've got too many other things, and I accept the guidance of the committee and their request. Any other speakers? Seeing none. Is there a motion to amend? Amend it to? Yep, so the adjective instead of the noun. The motion is moved by Councillor Marsden and seconded by Councillor Reid. On the motion to amend. Put the question, all in favor? No, I called the question. And when I say all in favor, you can't raise your hand. Councillor Wilson.
Just trying to help.
You were asking if anybody was wanting to speak on the amendment.
It is the amendment on the floor right now.
And I am in favor of voting against the amendment because I think if this is what the Arts and Culture Committee wanted, they are the arts and culture specialists. We should go with what they want.
You're in favor?
And we should not be involving ourselves in these little minor issues like you keep telling me I shouldn't be doing.
Well,
I was looking for consistency.
Anyways, that's all I was going to say.
Well, if they were looking for consistency, he wouldn't have said he's in favor of voting against. He would have said he's against voting in favor. Okay, we have one speaker. And anybody else? No. The motion is the amendment to the adjective. All in favor? Opposed? Councillors Wilson, Towner, Asmundson, Zarrillo, O'Neill, Hodge are opposed, along with, no, that's it. Motion carries. Fails. Fails miserably. I was looking for an adjective. It fails culturally.
There's the main motion.
I know. I'm just trying to catch.
I would have put up my hand, but that's...
Yeah. Okay. Motion as unamended. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillors Zarrillo and Reid are opposed. The motion carries.
Next item of business arising out of the committee meeting was the review and approval of their 2016 work plan. These recommendations that Council approved the 2016 Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, henceforth to be named the Cultural Services Advisory Committee work plan.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Towner. Two Terrys. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Now that's how you get a work plan approved.
Item 6 pertains to the Sustainability Environmental Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, March 29th. Staff recommendations that those minutes be received.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item of business arising out of that committee's meeting concerns the review and adoption of their 2016 work plan and their recommendations that Council approve the 2016 Sustainability Environmental Advisory Committee work plan.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Zarrillo. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 is the minutes of the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, April 20th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Anyone interested in changing it to Multiculture Advisory Committee? Seeing none, we're going to be able to complete the adoption of the minutes before 8 o'clock. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Mr. Gilbert.
I believe you have, you may be
Oh,
stepping
yes,
aside.
yes, oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Thank you very
Sometimes
much.
the hand works.
Yes. Out of an abundance of caution, and certainly not because I find myself in any particular conflict related to this, I own a property, my wife and I own a property about 5 doors from this, and out of an abundance of caution, I have excluded myself from previous readings of this, and I will exclude myself from fourth and final.
All right. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 8 pertains to fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4588. This is for 1016 Quadling Avenue. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4588.
I don't see any speakers to this item. So we'll take the vote. Can I just check with the clerk, since it's the first time I've looked at the screen, that there's no speakers to this item?
There are no speakers to this item.
All right, so all in favor, fourth and final? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will invite the mayor to return. The next item, item 9, is fourth and final reading of the Joint Administration of Bylaw Notice Dispute Adjudication Processes Amendment Bylaw, Pitt Meadows, number 4590. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to Joint Administration of Bylaw Notice Dispute Adjudication Processes Amendment Bylaw, Pitt Meadows, number 4590.
Moved by Councillor Marsden, seconded by Councillor Asman, the longest bylaw name we've ever passed. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 10 pertains to zoning amendment bylaw number 4675, which is to facilitate a proposed subdivision at 937 Edgar Avenue. Staff recommendations that council give first reading in City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4675 and that bylaw number 4675 be referred to public hearing.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Often on these, it lists whether they're putting a basement suite or a carriage home in, and here it doesn't list either. And I'm just wondering if that was on purpose or an oversight. And often they show a parking diagram, and again, there was nothing there. Is that? I know it's not required, but is this sort of a new way of doing it, or we're not going to worry about that anymore?
Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you. Through the chair, it hasn't been made clear by the applicant which option they're pursuing at this time. However, with the 10-meter wide lot that's proposed, it would be able to fit 3 side-by-side parking spaces in the lane and would be able to accommodate either the secondary suite, carriage house, or the coach house.
Thank you.
You're good. Did you want to speak? Have no comment. Seeing no other speakers. The question is first reading and a public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously and frivolously.
Item 11 is consideration of fourth and final reading of rezoning amendment bylaw number 4671, which is to permit liquor manufacturing and proposed amendments to the City of Coquitlam liquor licensing application referral review policy. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4671, and that council adopt the proposed updates to the City of Coquitlam liquor licensing application referral review policy.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Marsden. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. On page 2 of the report, in the middle of the page, the last bullet, it talks about requiring all new liquor manufacturers be subject to the current liquor license application policies, including fees, locational considerations, and good neighbor policy. That would not include the requirement for parking that pubs have to follow. Is that correct? When it says locational considerations, we're not talking about parking requirements there, are we?
Thank you. Through your chair, not per the zoning bylaw requirements. The zoning bylaw requirement for parking for pubs and the manufacturers will be as they currently are in the bylaw. This is talking about the things that the city would consider when a new application is received from the province, and the things that we would consider in the locational criteria, such as is it close to schools, is it close to transit, close to other similar uses, but that's what it was referring to.
I don't recall us talking about parking when we were discussing this issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, but parking requirements for a pub or a primary liquor license are higher than a restaurant. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And why is that?
To be honest, I'm not sure the history behind that. At this time, what we're recommending is that the parking rate be consistent with that of a commercial use within the zones that it's recommended to be permitted within, same as what a restaurant would be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think there's a reflection historically that more people leave a bar alone than leave a restaurant alone. Councillor Towner.
Thank you. I haven't spoken on this matter yet. I didn't speak last time. I had a really bad headache, so I just wanted to take an opportunity tonight to say a few words. So I wanted to start off by giving a sincere thank you to everybody who spoke at the public hearings, who participated in the consultation process, who took the time to email us and share ideas and input. I also want to commend staff for undertaking such a comprehensive review and for doing such a top-notch job facilitating the extensive public consultation. The process of reviewing the policies and examining the city's bylaw with respect to liquor manufacturing and retailing too has been exceptionally thorough and one of the most, if not the most, consultative processes our council has undergone. The public consultation process lasted many months on an issue that we've actually been looking at for more than a year. We heard from and listened to numerous voices in the community and the industry, and because of all these voices, the bylaw, after a prior public hearing, was tweaked, broken down into clear issue-specific points, and because of this, the process took longer than expected. We've received criticism for this length of time it's taken, and I empathize with those who wanted the city to just get on with it. But I want you all to know that the reason it's taken the amount of time that it has is because we have been extra cautious ensuring that we get this right. There are a lot of moving parts with respect to liquor regulations, many components, and also a number of nuances, and we must pay attention to them. We don't rubber stamp anything we are presented with, and this bylaw is more complex than one would initially think. I also want to empathize, I'm having troubles with that word tonight, oh my goodness, emphasize, this entire process was done in open meetings with the public for the public. I want to ensure everyone, in case you were led to believe otherwise, that this has been an entirely open, transparent process and no decisions were predetermined. Throughout all of this, two distinct sense of community sentiments were expressed to us during the public consultation process. One, acknowledging that liquor plays a role in our society in a gathering, social, cultural, celebrating type of way. We also heard views along the likes of we must protect the children, keep signs out of sight, liquor is the root to many social ails, and whatnot. As elected officials, we must strive to find this balance. Alcohol is part of society, and I believe there must be guidelines and some regulations in place, but practicality must prevail. I read a report published recently by the Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse that stated the consumption of alcohol isn't a vice to be eradicated, but rather a complex social activity with identifiable risks and rewards in need of balance. That sums it up perfectly. Moving along, This text amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit liquor manufacturing, I'm excited about it. But not only excited, I'm comfortable with it too. The zones make sense for numerous reasons. Being near public transit is one of those reasons. The policies here outlining the bylaw for liquor manufacturing, which includes craft breweries, is something that Coquitlam doesn't have at this point in time. And craft breweries are very popular, and it appears that consumer demand for these in our region is continuing to grow rapidly. I believe that establishments such as these will add vibrancy to our community. They will be gathering places, places to visit. We heard from many throughout this process who expressed not liking to have to leave Coquitlam for this type of experience. Having these type of establishments in our city now can become part of our culture, keep people here in Coquitlam. Therefore, they're spending their money here, and it's good for employment and economic prosperity. The trend in housing is such that more and more people are living in smaller homes, and therefore having places such as these to entertain, socialize, and whatnot is also very appealing, and again, it keeps people in their own city. There are many other reasons why Coquitlam adopting this bylaw for this type of industry is positive and exciting, but in addition to that, I do believe it's fair and consistent and very well thought out. Coquitlam will no longer be on the sidelines, and with respect to craft breweries, and I, amongst many others we heard from, are looking forward to getting into this game. So after all of this that I've said, I am in favor of this zoning bylaw, along with the proposed updates to the city's liquor licensing policy, and support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zarrillo.
Yeah, I just had a few questions, and because I was reading through the A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to double B, and I did actually email ahead to Mr. Jarvie that for BB, we're asking the following changes will be made. Seasonal outdoor seating where accessory to a restaurant, public house, or liquor manufacturing use. The first thing that popped into my mind is, do we need to specify that only with lounge endorsement? That'd be through the chair, the question to staff. Do we need to specify only with lounge endorsement for BB and similar ones where we're changing the wording?
Thank you. Through your chair, there wouldn't be a need to specify with the lounge endorsement. Outdoor seating areas would be permitted regardless of whether they had a lounge endorsement or if they just had the liquor manufacturing license.
Okay, so they could have the outdoor seating, they just couldn't consume alcohol on the outdoor seating.
It would be allowed the outdoor seating and would be allowed to consume alcohol, yes.
Only if they're a liquor manufacturer without a lounge endorsement, you can still drink alcohol on the site.
You can drink alcohol in the tasting room area within the building, and if you get a picnic endorsement from the province, you would be allowed to have an outdoor seating area. And the recommendation of the zone was that we allow for that opportunity should they gain one of those picnic endorsements. Okay,
so should we be specifying that, or liquor manufacturing use with a picnic endorsement? Should we be at least specifying that? I guess my concern is that even if they don't have a picnic endorsement and they don't have a lounge endorsement, can they still go outside and drink, I guess, would be the bylaw read that maybe that could be a possibility. I just want to clarify that it's not.
The city can't have restrictions that are less restrictive than the province. So we can't allow for outdoor seating area if the province wouldn't.
Okay. So that one got me looking at some other ones, and it just have a question for clarification. I think it was, I expressed last time that I wasn't comfortable with some of the C zones. So just to be clear from my understanding, I'm going to ask a question about other sorts of manufacturing that would be allowed in C2, C4, C5. So for example, if I'm a soup manufacturer, I'm Campbell's, and I want to make soup, but I also want to have retail accessory where I can sell soup out of the front. Am I allowed to do that in C2s, C4s, C5s? Am I allowed to manufacture soup and sell it out front of retail accessory?
Just to clarify, the definition of liquor manufacturing, which is proposed to be permitted within these zones, means the manufacturing of alcoholic beverages that are subject to the BC Liquor Control and Licensing Act and its regulations. And at this time, that's staff's recommendation is to permit that, to create that definition, as well as introduce it within those zones. So the manufacturing in those cases would be limited to, as it says in the definition of the manufacturing of alcoholic beverages only.
So that's kind of what bothered me when I was rereading this week. I kind of thought to myself, so we're making special concession for one certain kind of manufacturing, which is liquor manufacturing. But if you had another business, I had examples down here. So, you know, if you had coffee roasters, if you had industrial sized coffee roasters and you wanted to have artisan coffee out of the front, just to clarify through staff, that's not allowed in C2 or C4 or C5, correct?
Coffee shops, restaurants, bakeries, things that make their own product on site and sell are permitted uses within those zones. This use for liquor manufacturing is a new and emerging trend. It's a bit of a blending of some different traditional uses. It's not an outright manufacturing use, it's not an outright commercial use, it's kind of a blend in between where you need the space requirements for the manufacturing of the large equipment, but then you've got the commercial component where in the tasting rooms where they have the accessory retail and the tasting room there.
And I guess that's where I'm trying to understand what is the limit on the manufacturing, because let's say I'm Chapman's and I'm doing ice cream, I'm doing it in large batches. But this is the same thing that came into my mind when I was thinking about this. Yes, a bakery bakes goods in the back. They make cakes, and that's okay in certain C areas. But how do we define what's okay and what's not? Like if I want to make jeans in C4, I can't make jeans and sell them out the front in C4. Like how do we determine which one has hit the threshold of manufacturing where we need to define it in the bylaw, and where they're actually manufacturing something like baked goods or chocolate, where it doesn't hit the threshold where it needs to be called out in the bylaw? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. I want to make sure that I'm not favoring one type of manufacturing business over another in certain zones of the city, because that just doesn't seem like it would be equitable.
Your Worship, if I could, maybe I could
McIntyre.
try to respond to that. Yes, thank you. There's a couple things here. The question of what's determined, yes or no, that's dealt with on each application, and it's true. Some of the commercial space in Coquitlam can be very similar in look and layout to some light industrial space. It really is considered and dealt with when someone comes in. If they're leasing the space, they all want to get confirmation of a business license for that location before they ink the lease agreement. So it's through that process of a business license inquiry or application. There's a referral from the business licensing staff over the planning staff, and they'll then look at the zoning bylaw and try to understand what's being proposed and would it fit within that zone. So it becomes basically, it's a matter of the nature of the use that's proposed and the scale. And it was noted, like in a bakery, it's half the floor area may be for the production of bread and other baked goods, and there may be a front end area for sales, and maybe a small cafe there too. If that bakery was to be a large layout, and 95% for production, and most of the production was going out the back in delivery vans, a very small portion in the front, it would probably tip the scale over to more of an industrial size of operation. So I think, as Chris has pointed out, there are instances where you have that production on site, coffee shops, and consumption and retail. So it would be dealt with as a matter of scale and proportion.
So I know that the community wants these things. I just want to have it said on the record that I don't agree with favoring one business over another business. And I think that with doing this in the C zones, that we need to be open in the future if different types of businesses come to our business counter and say that they would like to have some sort of manufacturing in these zones, where they would like to have retail accessory out the front and maybe even some outdoor seating, that we should look at them equitably like we would with liquor manufacturing, because liquor manufacturing is going to have a benefit in these commercial zones because it's called out explicitly in the bylaw going forward if this passes today. And it is going to put other businesses that have potentially manufacturing that want retail accessory at the mercy of a staff call when they come to the desk. So I just want us to be sensitive to that going forward, because there are a lot of artisan things that are coming up. Cheese, wines, coffees, and I just want to make sure that we're keeping an open mind to all of those opportunities as they come to our C zones. Thank you.
Again, Your Worship, some really good points. And first thing, just let me respond by saying we are open for business. We have an economic development staff group in the city, and they're often promoting, and they're advocates for new businesses. And we try to find ways to enable as opposed to say no. The other thing, too, I would point to is we are hoping to get to a review and overhaul of our commercial zones this year. It's probably something we start later in the year, and some really good points being made. So I think let's do that. We can look at our commercial zones through those lenses of not wanting to preclude business opportunities. Last thing, I guess I would just note that, yeah, the craft brewery bandwagon seems to be off to quite a start around the Lower Mainland. And a lot of the locations I've noticed these in, it is within a commercial district or sort of a commercial / light industrial district, and where you get quite a range of business uses in those areas. So I don't think it'll be, by presenting that opportunity in Coquitlam in commercial zones, we're necessarily discriminating or making it more difficult for other businesses in those zones.
Okay. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Mr. Jarvie, did you say that we can't have lesser restrictions than the province?
Sorry, I think I must have meant more restrictive. Or, no, not. Yeah, so what I meant in that scenario is that if the province hasn't issued a picnic endorsement, we wouldn't be allowed to allow the outdoor seating area with
and
that.
What about the 1 kilometer separation? If the province says 1 kilometer, how can we be trying to reduce that?
The recommendation is that there be no separation distance between these uses to other uses within the city.
I'm talking about the other part of the liquor,
Retailing?
Yeah, the liquor retailers, the liquor primary that we've got in one of the bullets here.
We can't really talk to that item tonight because it's not before us tonight, and it's...
Well, because it's mentioned, I'm just asking.
Okay, I'm just saying we're not able to talk about that. Liquor retailing is a separate item.
It is, but it's still part of the... In any event, that's interesting, so I'll deal with it again because that's quite an interesting statement. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speakers to that? Motion will be read out again by the clerk to make sure we know where we're going.
The motion, which was moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Marsden, was that Council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4671, and that Council adopt the proposed updates to the City of Coquitlam liquor licensing application referral review policy.
Thank you. Further questions? After quite a long process, all in favor? All opposed? The motion carries without opposition.
Next item, item 12, pertains to Bear Smart certification application. Staff recommendations that Council direct staff to apply for Bear Smart certification by submitting this report along with a letter of commitment to maintain the city's efforts to reduce the potential for bear human conflicts to the Ministry of Environment. We have introductory comments by the General Manager of Engineering and Public Works and a short video.
I used to love movies elementary school.
So thank you, Your Worship. Coquitlam, as we all know, is an interface community between urban and wildlife areas. With the intent of reducing human-bear conflicts, the Bear Smart program was established in British Columbia by the Ministry of Environment. Coquitlam has been working towards becoming a Bear Smart community since 2005 by developing and implementing proactive planning and operational practices aimed at reducing the likelihood of human-wildlife conflicts in the city of Coquitlam. Under the leadership of our Environmental Services Division, several city departments have worked together to improve our city's practices to be more bear smart. And although this has been a team effort, I would also like to acknowledge our recently retired urban wildlife coordinator, Drake Stevens, for his expertise and contribution to our achievements. Given our collective achievements to date, we are now in a position to formally apply for the Bear Smart certification with Council's support. And now, I would also like to take this opportunity to formally launch to Council and members of the public our most recent educational video on how to properly manage bear and wildlife attractants on residential properties. Just in case, if you cannot recognize the actors, they are all city employees.
Do you have unwanted guests coming for dinner? Coquitlam is a community with rich nature and green spaces, and we must be respectful of the wildlife we share with. Start by keeping your green cart clean and placing food scraps in your kitchen catcher, paper bags, or wrapped in newspaper. And you can always freeze smelly foods such as meat or fish until collection day. Do not use plastic bags with your green waste, even if it reads biodegradable or compostable. Remove all attractants from your backyard. Clean your barbecue after each use. Take down bird feeders or suspend them out of reach from bears. Store pet food and dishes inside. Keep all food waste out of reach from wildlife. Lock and store your carts in a secure location. All your bins and carts should be curbside between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. on collection day, and not the night before. And the City of Coquitlam does not recommend using the garbage truck as an alarm clock. Make sure the lids on your carts are both unlocked and closed at the time of pickup. By taking these simple steps, you are avoiding inviting wildlife onto your property. For more information on the curbside collection program and how to live smart with urban wildlife, please contact the City of Coquitlam.
Quite the bear behind on that last little scene. Okay. Councillor Asmundson, did you have something to say?
Well, thank you, Mayor Stewart. A very good video. Thank you. I hope the actors here get some residuals out of that. I was here in 2005, my first year in council, when we moved for the Bear Smart. I didn't realize the depth and breadth of the time and work that would take to accomplish all the requirements for it. But I'm very pleased to see the good work that our staff has done. I want to thank Mr. Diozeki about mentioning our retired wildlife warden, Mr. Drake Stevens, and all the tremendous work that he did, and Mrs. Stephanie Warner, our environmental manager, and their team to bring us to this day and have us now that we can apply to be a Bear Smart community. I think it's an excellent day. I'm very proud of this. I've been part of this for a number of years, and as chair of the Environmental Committee, it's a good day for this city and the responsibility to be taken for our bears and our wildlife. It's more than just our bears. It's also other wildlife, from raccoons and other ones, to keep them out of garbage and under control. So a very good report. I want to just say thank you to all the staff involved.
Thank you. And for our residents at home, please pay heed to this message. When bears get fed in our garbage, they get shot. It happens every year where conservation ends up shooting bears because of our negligence. We can't be inviting them to the smorgasbord. We can't let Yogi and Boo Boo get the picnic basket, because if it happens repeatedly, the bears get shot and killed. So please, follow the rules. Put an ice cream pail in your freezer and freeze the smelly stuff until garbage day. We can do this. We can protect our bears. We can keep them in the wild where they belong and not eating the garbage where they cannot survive. So please, everybody, let's do our part, and we'll get Bear Smart certification. But more importantly, we will get along better with the wildlife that we value so much. Councillor Towner.
Thank you. I just want to echo similar sentiment. It was very sad that just last week a bear got killed in Belcara, I believe, and last month 3, a mom and 2 cubs, got killed in Port Moody just because of people being irresponsible with their waste and whatnot. So I'm proud of, very well done. I'm very proud of Coquitlam that we got a report just a few months ago that we only had 2 bears were put down last year in 2015, down from a high of 14 and 9 and 8, and it's been coming down. So kudos to everybody involved in being ready to apply for this certification. And I'm optimistic for our success. And if I'm reading this right, we'll be the first major urban municipality to receive this provincial certification. Am I right?
Go.
Yes, that is correct. And certainly within the Fraser Valley and Metro Vancouver regional areas, where we have the most concentrated and dense urban setting.
Fantastic work. I've said this before, but I've been very impressed with the community outreach and the presence of the festivals. Oh yes, very impressed.
Very impressed.
So keep up the good work. Thank you.
I can't bear all these puns.
We'll barely get through this.
The motion is to direct staff to apply. All in.
The motion which has not been moved or seconded.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Towner. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
I work with the material in front of me.
Let's take a pause. Okay.
See, I was trying to come up with that, and I was like going like this and couldn't do it. Item 13 is tennis and pickleball services and facilities strategy terms of reference. Staff recommendations that council approve the tennis and pickleball services and facilities strategy terms of reference.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Zarrillo. Councillor Wilson on tennis and pickleballs.
We talked at one point about an updated analysis of the 2012 look at the North Vancouver facility, and I didn't see that specified in here, and I was trying to figure out where it might be categorized under, but in your opinion, is that something that you think should be included in this, or was it left out purposely?
No, Your Worship, there's the Grant Connell Tennis Center I think you're talking about. Yeah, we are looking at all opportunities to partner and models for the delivery of tennis. We'll be looking at all of those, including that facility. Some of them are significantly privately funded, but we will look at those as part of our best practices research.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Okay, thank you. This report comes at a time that we're involved in a number of other reports, all of which are feeding into the Master Parks, Recs, and Culture Master Plan. So it'd be nice to get certainly to get this information as we can move ahead. I note that we've had a number of emails and things from tennis players, both recreational and people involved in the clubs. So I just want to ensure that in the terms of reference that some of the things that we've heard about will be covered off. First of all, of course, there's a big question around People's Court. The contract is coming up there. And will this, the terms of reference, also look into that contract and make recommendations for the future of that site?
Mr. Oliva.
Yes, it most certainly will. It's highlighted as one of the key deliverables is really to look at that facility. It's currently on a year-to-year, and we know that we have to look at the facility, the operator, and the delivery of the continuation of the delivery of covered tennis is significantly involves the discussions and decisions around People's Court. So yes, there's a deliverable there to determine how that service can be delivered and continued, and that's highlighted as a key deliverable here.
Good. And in keeping with that, I note that that it does mention reservoirs, and that this is something that we've heard about, and from Metro in general, is about the future of tennis courts on reservoirs. We have at least two. I don't know if we have another one, but we've got two for sure.
Yes.
So we'll just look at that and what sort of the outcome we're looking for in that regard.
Again, through the chair. The important thing to note here is that we are working closely with our engineering and public works, our staff, as well as Metro, to really optimize these kind of facilities on reservoir locations. There's ongoing review of how these operate, and the whole issue of access to the utility, security, and all these factors. And we're quite well aware of those issues, and we're quite prepared, as we've discussed with Metro, to look at everything we need to do as part of these operations to make sure that we safeguard that utility while still providing the service. And we think there's no reason why we can't do that. We will continue to look at these facilities for multi-purpose. We do believe there's ways to do that, and we will move in that direction.
Okay, thank you. As with many of these reports, we often get a sort of a high-level report, and then we get a follow-up or a notation that says that, we're going to need a follow-up report, or we're going to need an implementation strategy. Will this report sort of be all-encompassing? Will it give us sort of the number of courts that we may need, a rough timeline and costs, so that we won't have to then have an implementation strategy or something to follow along in parallel?
Through the chair again, yes, absolutely. This is, I would distinguish this from, for instance, a plan like the master plan or the arts, culture, and heritage strategic plan, which covers many, many areas of service at a higher level. This is going to be more like the aquatic strategy, or well, that's probably the best example, where we do want to build on the work that was done in 2012 and actually deliver a plan here, a strategy that actually says, yes, this is the number of courts we think we'll need, the type of courts, their location, covered, not covered, costing, all of that. And that is the deliverable of this plan, and we strategy, and we'll hope to do that by complete the draft plan or strategy by the end of the year, and the completion of the actual full plan by 2017.
That's great. I mean, certainly this is something we've heard in the tennis community. There was some good work done on the first plan, but it didn't sort of give us all the information that we need. So we want to fill in those gaps, and one of those is sort of what, when, and often where it's going to be located. And I guess my final comment on that is going to be that looking at what services that we can offer in conjunction with schools. I note that some tennis courts are on school property. There may be opportunities to, as we build new schools, to look at that. And I just want to make sure that as part of the terms of reference that we also look at not just what maybe neighboring communities on our borders are doing, but also what other private or, in this case, school properties may be providing those same opportunities.
Thank you. That's another great point. We certainly have highlighted already the future high school in the Northeast as a location where we would want to build 4 tennis courts, as an example, in partnership with the school district. And these are key facilities which we feel there is synergy between the school district needs and the public needs, very much like sports field assets. They can be shared effectively, and we do actually share a number of facilities that do benefit both the city and the school district, and that opportunity will be highlighted in here as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. Very quickly, I circled and underlined the word key next to one part of this, and it was attachment 1, deliverable, number 4, deliverables, the E part. Preparation, this is a deliverable we expect in the terms of reference. A preparation of a draft tennis and pickleball services and facility strategy that will serve the city with practical recommendations. And I think that's what Councillor Hodge was getting to, that we sometimes seem to miss. Practical recommendations for the provision of tennis and pickleball services with short, medium, and long-term implementation goals. To me, when I saw that, I said, this is all I need. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that's important in here, but that's the bringing it home part that's so important, and I'm so glad that's in here. That's all. Thank you.
Yep. Another question is a tennis and pickleball services and facilities strategy. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Game, set, and match.
Next item, item 14, pertains to Princeton Park, final detailed design and budget. Staff recommendations, the council approve the final detailed design plan for Princeton Park as per the report before you. And 2, that staff be authorized to proceed with project procurement and construction utilizing improved funding envelope of $906,500.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Zarrillo.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see this. It's nice to see this come up. I do have a question, though, and it's going to be about Rochester Park. So I just had heard in an open council meeting maybe a month or 2 back that some park projects impact other park projects. And I just want to ask staff through the chair, if this project goes ahead, if there will be impact to the timelines of Rochester Park, because I see Town Center Park work going on there even till 7, 8 in the evening, but I don't see anything happening at Rochester Park. So 2 questions. 1, if this Princeton Park is approved, is it going to affect timelines of Rochester Park getting completed, the upper section that butts Rochester? And has the Rochester Park already gone out to tender? Because I see if this one's going out to tender at the same time that Rochester Park's going out to tender, I can see that that may also be an impact.
Through your worship, the Rochester Park tender has already gone out and the tenders have been received by staff. We are currently reviewing those tenders, and that's a subject of another report in front of council for this evening. And the impact on, I think the question is, if council were to approve Princeton Park as proposed by staff, is that going to have an impact on delaying the completion of Rochester Park? And the answer is no. We do have the resources to complete Princeton Park without impacting the deferment or delay in completing Rochester Park.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of other questions. One is on page 3. We have our 2011 census data. And we had a discussion earlier today that census data is really dated now. So I'm a little bit concerned of pushing forward on Princeton Park without new census data. So I'll just make that comment. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was girls and some of the data that we saw today, that once girls reach the age of 10, they stop so much of the physical activity. And I actually saw an article last week, I sent it to staff, that talked about girls, once they reach the age of 10, are not out visiting the parks, different reasons, but one of them is that, you know, if there is amenities there at the park that oftentimes girls go down in the pecking order when there's boys around. So I'm glad that we're going to be doing something at Princeton. I saw that there was something in the report that said that because of the small nature of it, that we might not do as much consultation on it. But I actually think maybe we have some time to really think about using this park for something maybe more innovative and something maybe for our girls and something maybe for kids 10 till 15 or 16. I see the park plan shows that we'll have an area for 1s to 5 and then for 6 to 12. So I would like to see this plan go. I'd like the investment to be a little bit more targeted, I think. So I'll listen to the rest of council, but yeah, there was some disturbing things that I saw in the report earlier today about the activity levels of some of our girls, and this seems like a really good opportunity since we do have a lot of toddler space, sport court space close by, walkable, and we will have a big soccer field at the new school site. So just in my mind, I'm pondering. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Towner.
Okay, so I've previously stated that during litter cleanup initiatives, I've picked up hundreds of cigarette butts in these beautiful, welcoming, pleasant seating areas, like plazas, benches, in neighborhood parks. And the majority of them were found in the bark mulch. Well, I've since learned that bark mulch can be a major fire hazard, and with heading into the hot summer or a drought time. So I'm just wondering if, I have two questions. This park sounds like it's going to have a plaza and nice seating area and flowers and just a nice passive area. What is the material that's planned for being around underneath the trees and the shrubs and around the benches? And or depending on the answer, are we considering keeping bark mulch away from the seating area, or are we considering embracing opportunities with opening and designing new parks to have little signs reminding people that we don't want smoking in our parks? I'm just finding being out there in a lot of the parks with a lot of the nice benches and gathering areas that.
Mr. Alweb.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess for the benefit of the general public, if they're not aware of it, smoking in our parks is not permitted. So we'll start there. This issue was raised at the town hall meeting. It's been raised with us operationally. It is a very significant operational challenge, not just to us, but also to engineering and public works, who deal with streets and bus stops and, you name it. And we're continuing to try and target operationally the cleanup of areas that are consistently found to be places where smokers congregate. And the biggest issue, as I've raised with council, is parking lots. It does happen, however, in seating areas, and particularly some of these parks. You do get this happening, and in terms of the details that you're asking about, I think what we would do is we would, the final details of the actual amount, the type of sod material or material around some of the shrubbery, we will make sure that in the final design of this material that we look at the possibility of dealing with this issue. We have grappled with the issue of signage as well, and the issue of receptacles for discarded cigarette butts. It's very, very challenging, not just the capital costs, but where do we put these? People enter the park through multitude of areas and directions. So it's a very significant challenge. What I would suggest is that our staff continue to see whether the design is the design overly conducive to someone being there kind of isolated smoking. That's something we want to avoid. The more open it is, the more likely it is to limit that, and also the undercover, the understory, and the actual planting medium. Whether do we, in some cases you need the mulch just for the type of planting that it is, but it's something we'll talk to our operational staff to try and minimize. Signage, I guess, is a big issue for us because there's so many signs in parks. We get asked to stop putting signs up. It's visual clutter everywhere. On the other hand, you do need to direct the public to the behavior and activities in parks at times, or directional signage combined with regulatory signage, it becomes overwhelming. So this is something we're still looking at. There's no easy answer for this, but we are looking at this issue as part of the final design of the park.
Thank you for that. I just thought a little coroplast sign in the garden by the benches just might be a little reminder. But and I also have I totally support the design process being accelerated. For all the reasons listed, it's limited size and scope, small neighborhood park, it's straightforward. There's already been some public input, so you have my support there.
Okay, Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, so I note it's a relatively small park. But it's a true neighborhood park. In fact, it's located in a neighborhood that has been built out. So all the homes and all the homes are in place now, and they've actually been looking at this vacant piece of land for some time now. And I appreciate that staff has done a good job in sort of keeping it maintained and litter picked up, and they even put a garbage can in there for temporary, because it is being used already, even though it's vacant land. I think that one of the things that I do like, in sort of response to Councillor Zarrillo's concerns, is that I think that this one is unique in that it does offer two separate play areas, so that the older kids are separated from the younger kids. And as a father of boys, I think I sort of appreciate that they can be a little rambunctious and sometimes push the younger kids or the girls out of the way. And I think that having a separate area for a little more challenging for the boys that want to have a more physical activity, they can do that without interfering with the enjoyment of the younger kids. And living in this neighborhood, I can say there are a lot of young kids there. I thought that 5 years ago, when we started talking about the number of young kids, that we'd see them all sort of getting ready for middle school now. But in fact, there are more and more young families moving in. So it will be interesting to see the census information for all areas of our city. But I suggest that if anything, these numbers are probably low. That's just anecdotal, but I think this park will be well used, and I know that the people in the area are looking forward to seeing it sort of completed as soon as possible, especially after we have had some previous consultation on it. The other thing that I think that is interesting, it has been to watch the filming there. I do note that the filming of Wayward Pines, which has been taking place in that neighborhood off and on for a couple of years, that park site currently looks like a small military establishment with all the fencing and everything there. And I explained to residents that no, it's all movie props, everything is coming out. But it's nice to see that our city staff have negotiated a contribution with the production company, and that they're going to be making, it looks like about a $50,000 contribution to that park, and I'm sure that will go to help put some amenities in there. So to the residents and the neighbors in that area who've put up with the filming, this is a little something coming back to their community, and we look forward to seeing the film on TV and seeing a new park where the filming took place. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you. I live on Burke Mountain. I've been up to this area a few times. This is a park that's going to fit well. I think, as Councillor Hodges said, there's seems to be never-ending supply of younger children in the area, and especially with this development to the north of it is townhousing, which I think is going to continue to supply a lot of younger children to use this park here. What I also like in this thing, though, is I like the selection of this idea of this in-ground trampoline as one of the amenities in that, which I think is going to create some uniqueness and fun for the kids in that area, for boys and girls. And I have a son and a daughter, and I think my daughter was more the aggressor one to push her brother out of the way to get into playing than the other way around. So I think it works back and forth. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this under construction. I think it'll be a benefit to the area, and I just like the creativity that staff has shown on some of the new park amenities and features you're putting into parks. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Motion is before us. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 15 concerns the Smiling Creek Sports Field, its final detailed design and budget. Staff recommendation is that Council approve the final detailed design and capital budget of $2.8 million as per the report before you. 2, that staff be directed to allocate $1.4 million of additional funding in the 2017 capital plan and proceed with immediate procurement and construction of the Smiling Creek Sports Field.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Zarrillo. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next item, item 16, pertains to the capital construction projects update, first trimester 2016. Two-part recommendation from staff is that council authorize a $500,000 increase to the Town Centre Park Plaza capital budget with a revised project capital budget totaling $3.2 million, with additional funding from the recently awarded $500,000 federal heritage grant. And 2, the council authorize a $485,000 increase to the Rochester Parks and Trails capital budget for a revised capital budget totaling $4.84 million in response to the recent contract tender pricing received by the city for this project with funding from the city's infrastructure reserve.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Hodge. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, Councillor Zarrillo.
Well, I'd like to move separation, please.
Okay. I'll redo the vote. It's okay. So separation has been requested. We will now consider one alone, which is an increase in the $500,000 increase in the budget from the Federal Heritage Grant. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zarrillo is opposed to that. So is Councillor Marsden. Okay. I'm going to just, the screen is not the correct wording of the motion. The screen has an extra 0 in the second number.
Yes. Whoa.
We always go with what is on the agenda.
Yes, yeah, the legitimate one's on the agenda. I just want to make that clear. And so the motion that we voted on was had 3.2 million in that second number. No objection. Councillor Zarrillo.
Just wanted to have the opportunity to speak to this one about Rochester Park. So if this gets approved today, we're at basically just short of $5 million for Rochester Parks and Trails. And yeah, so I think, I can't speak for everyone, but I think perhaps we would have made different decisions if we had a $5 million budget up front. I know that this community just wanted a pool, and I'm going to have great difficulty authorizing another $485,000 to this project, but personally I'm going to approve it today because I think the community deserves the investment. But I want to speak to it because I just want to make sure that incorporated in this an additional $485,000 that we are going to need a fence on the upper portion of Rochester Park. I want to make sure that it's in right now. We are going to need a safety fence all along the east side of the upper portion of Rochester Park. If we are going to have open play there, there needs to be a proper fence. At this point in time, there isn't. So I just don't remember if that was in the plans or not, but please, as part of this $485,000, let's make sure that we are incorporating the safety fence there. And
I assume you mean a construction fence?
no, I mean after the construction, like it can't be open there, and it can't be the current fence once the park is finished.
Okay. There's been a request for an adjustment of the plans here, I think. Mr. Alueva.
I was out on the site. My understanding there is a construction fence. Although just to clarify, and Mr. Sinisha can talk about the timing of the construction of the upper part of the park, which we want to make sure when school comes into session again, because that construction will happen over the next few months, and when school comes back in September, that we've got everything set up so that there's no conflict between that area and the construction site, which will, in the upper part, I believe, and Mr. Sinisha will confirm that the specific timing that's targeted for that. We'll make sure the interfaces work well. At the moment, there is construction fencing. We don't have a permanent fencing identified between those two properties. There's a bit of a seamless transition amongst the skate park area and the two play zones. There is a separation between the parking lot access. We are relocating that to Rochester, to the street, as opposed to the school district parking lot, but there is no permanent fencing identified.
So what I'm concerned about is on the east side, that will be Rochester Park, there's a wood fence right now. It's just like two wood slats that guard against the drop on the east side. The thing is, there was always a fence. The pool was always fenced, so kids weren't playing out there. There was a path, and people would walk, and they would go down the stairs, and that was okay. But once we get the new playground in, kids are going to be running and flowing, and we need a barrier there. We just do. It's a drop, and yeah. So that's what I just hope that this, if we are going to authorize this $485,000, that it's not going to come back, because we're going to need a fence there. We can't have kids running without.
Yeah, well, council approved the design some time ago, and I don't recall whether the design incorporated a fence in the spot that you are referring to. I know that the design incorporated playing structures that went down a hill and took up some of that slope, so I don't know whether that's the slope that we're talking about, in which case the fence would not only be obviated but counterproductive. So I'm going to, okay, we've got strategic initiatives. Construction.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship,
Mr.
we will ensure that the project is built to all the safety standards that are applicable. Our understanding to date is that the drawings that were approved by council are applicable to all safety codes and regulations. However, we will double check that. Safety is our first concern, of course, both during construction and after. So we will make sure we double check that, and if there are any omissions that have occurred, we will look at that, and we will make sure that all of the playground and construction is done to proper safety codes.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Through the chair, and actually a little bit more detail. Oh, my voice carries quite well, doesn't it? We did actually review that part of the park during the design process. We're well aware of the condition that Councillor Zarrillo is speaking about. There's quite a steep drop-off and an informal path along a ridge down into the ravine at the moment. There will be a new fence going in there. I can't confirm what height it is, but there is also sort of thick shrub-type planting going along there as well as a secondary barrier. So there'll be the fence and the heavy planting of shrubs as well, along with the brambles that also grow freely as you enter the ravine area.
Come back again for fence, so thank you.
Okay, I must say, though, I worked at that park as a lifeguard, and the ravine was the part of the park that had the greatest appeal for kids because there were no fences, and you could walk along the edge and fall down and grab onto tree branches, and so I hope we don't make it to the point where kids can't be adventurous to some degree while still making it safe. Thank you. And I hope you don't add anything to the cost. Question is, recommendation 2, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 17 is the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief for April 29, 2016. Staff recommendations that Council receive for information, the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief.
So moved.
Moved by you, Brent? Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any questions on the board and brief? All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries. Moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Towner to adjourn. On the motion to adjourn.
Actually, I had a notice of motion for the evening, and I thought it was, I didn't realize the procedure. I thought it would be called before the end. So I have a notice of motion that I wanted to bring tonight.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is in regards to campaign contributions at the municipal level. So whereas the provincial response to the 2015 UBCM resolutions have been released, and the province at this time is not considering establishing general limits on campaign contributions amounts or sources, and whereas the provincial response to the UBCM resolution on campaign contribution legislation does not appear to be in line with the current opinion of the majority of British Columbians.
Normally read only the be it resolved, but go ahead.
Therefore, be it resolved that the province prohibit political campaign contributions from corporate and union sources at the local government level in the province of BC. And further, be it resolved that limits to be placed on the size of individuals and candidates' contributions to campaigns, and that the City of Coquitlam submit this resolution to the UBCM for its consideration and support at their 2016 annual convention. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume it's been seconded. Yes, there we go. Just for everyone's, we don't get too many of these anymore, and a motion or a notice of motion that says the province shall do something really ought to be amended, and we'll allow that amendment on the floor at the next council meeting to say that really all we're saying is that we hereby ask them to do something. A motion that therefore be it resolved that the province declare war on somebody is, whatever. We don't get to do that. They're the only ones who get to do that. So the motion is always to request that they do it. But the motion, therefore, will be put on the agenda for the next council meeting.
That is correct.
Thank you. To its devotees, the bow tie suggests iconoclasm of the old world sort, a fusty adherence to a contrarian point of view. He's not wearing a bow tie here, but the bow tie hints at intellectualism, real or feigned, and sometimes suggests technical acumen, perhaps because it is so hard to tie. Bow ties are worn by magicians, country doctors, lawyers, professors, and by people hoping to look like the above, but perhaps most of all, wearing a bow tie is a way of broadcasting an aggressive lack of concern for what other people think. That would be by Warren St. John, the New York Times. We will miss you, Mr. Dhaliwal, and we missed you at this first meeting. So the motion was to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We will now entertain up to 25 minutes. Let's go 25 minutes today of questions on tonight's agenda. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Seeing none. Seeing none. I have asked you if you had a question for the last 6 years.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Turpin. I live at 2542 Bluebell, and I'm very concerned that you've taken the arts out of Coquitlam, and I would like to know why. I have 2 sons that went to university to get a degree in the arts, not in culture. I would ask you to reconsider and put the arts back into Coquitlam. Thanks.
Well, there you go. We, of course, did that at the request of a committee, but such is life. I thank you very much, though, for coming forward with that. We'll have Councillor O'Neill answer the question.
Thank you for the question. And indeed, one of your sons was on the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee a couple of years ago, and was a valuable member. The thinking was, and it's also in line with the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategic Plan, that to avoid confusion and to seek some unity of purpose, that the word culture or cultural services or culture services phrase be adopted, because culture involves art. Culture involves heritage. Culture does involve multiculturalism as well. And so we are not eliminating art from culture. We are saying that art is part of culture, but culture is the umbrella term. And so that was certainly the consensus. I don't know if there was any opposition at the committee meeting from it, and I know it's the recommendation of staff as well, and that's how they are going forward with culture services, and the committee certainly accepted that as well. So there is no downgrading of arts. As a matter of fact, I think over the last couple of years, there's been a lot more emphasis placed on art and culture and heritage, and more talk about it, and even some deliverables as well. Everything from the new library, which has artistic component to it, and it's got an agreement with the Evergreen Cultural Center Gallery to display artworks, to the new Performance Plaza that will be open by July 1st. A great investment in culture in the community of Coquitlam. And that's all I can say. Thank you. Thanks for raising the subject, though.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience on tonight's agenda? Any questions? Any questions? Thank you very much. Have a good evening, all.